The sun had just begun to set over the barren, rocky planet. The wind howled through the desolate landscape, kicking up dust and debris from the long-forgotten war. Earth's military had sent Captain Lucas Harris on a simple mission to collect valuable resources from a downed supply ship. It wasn't supposed to be anything special, just another routine task. But as Lucas approached the wreckage, something didn't feel right. The ship's remains were scattered across the dry plains, its hull cracked open like a giant egg. There was no sign of the crew, only silence. Lucas activated his helmet's HUD, scanning the area. His sensors detected movement nearby. It wasn't human. His hand instinctively moved to his weapon, but before he could draw it, he heard a low voice, a voice that seemed to echo through his mind. "Don't be afraid." He froze. The voice was unlike any he had heard before. It wasn't mechanical like the radios or comm systems he was used to. It was alive, curious, intriguing. Turning his head slowly, Lucas's eyes fell on a figure half hidden in the wreckage. The creature before him was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Standing about 6 feet tall, with smooth, pale blue skin, the alien had delicate, pointed ears that seemed too small to be practical. Her hair was long, flowing in shades of silver and teal, glinting in the fading sunlight. Who are you?" Lucas asked, his voice a mixture of awe and caution. The alien smiled, revealing sharp but graceful features, a subtle curve to her lips. Her eyes were deep pools of violet, filled with ancient wisdom. "I am Zira, the last of my kind. And you, human, you have found me." Lucas's heart raced. He had heard of the Gyrans, an alien species thought to have been wiped out during the last galactic war. Yet here she was, standing before him, alive and well. But why? And what did she want? Zira stood up from her crouch and dusted off her shimmering cloak. "You look surprised. I suppose you weren't expecting to meet a queen today." "Queen?" Lucas stammered, unsure if he had heard her right. "You're a queen." Zira nodded. "Yes. And you are the first human to lay eyes on me in centuries. Lucky you." The air felt heavier, as if the planet itself had started to hold its breath. Zira took a step forward, her eyes never leaving Lucas. "I offer you a choice, human," she said, her voice calm and commanding. "Help me, and you will change the course of this war." Lucas was caught off guard. "What are you talking about? Why should I trust you?" Zira's smile widened, a glint of something dangerous in her gaze. "You don't have to trust me, but if you don't help, your planet will fall. You've seen the destruction, the endless wars. It can all end if you accept my offer." Lucas was silent, the weight of her words settling over him like a storm. What was she asking? And what would be the price of accepting? "You have one chance," she continued, "one decision, and I'll know if you're worthy of what I offer." Lucas stood frozen, his mind racing. He had no idea what was happening, but something told him this moment could change everything. Lucas stood still, staring at Zira. Her words echoed in his mind, each one carrying weight he didn't fully understand. He had just stumbled upon an alien queen, and now she was asking for his help. The whole situation felt surreal, like something out of a science fiction novel. "You still haven't answered me," Zira said, her voice smooth and confident, as though she was used to getting what she wanted. "Will you help me, or will you walk away?" Lucas felt a tension in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. A real choice. His military training told him to be cautious, to treat this encounter like a threat. But his gut told him there was more to this than just survival. The war between Earth and the alien species had been long and brutal. If there was a way to end it, to bring peace, perhaps this queen could be the key. But what was the cost? "I don't know what you want from me," Lucas finally said, his voice steady despite the confusion swirling in his mind. "What do you mean by changing the course of the war?" Zira tilted her head slightly, her violet eyes glowing in the dim light. "I offer you power," she said simply. power to defeat your enemies, to change the very fate of your people. I can help you, but you must help me in return." Lucas frowned, not sure if he should be terrified or intrigued. "Help you do what?" Zira stepped closer, her presence towering over him. "My race, the Gerans, had been hunted to the brink of extinction. My enemies have driven us into hiding for too long. I want to rebuild. I want to restore my kingdom. And with your help, I can take back what's ours." The soldier's mind raced. "You want me to fight for you?" He was used to taking orders, but this felt different. He had never imagined he'd be standing face to face with an alien queen, hearing her ask for help in this way. "Yes," Zira said, her voice growing firmer. "But not in the way you think. I don't need soldiers or weapons. I need someone who understands power, someone who isn't afraid to take risks. I need someone who can lead my forces and unite those who will stand with us." "But why me?" Lucas asked, feeling a strange sense of being chosen for something beyond his control. "I'm just a soldier, a captain." "You are not just a soldier, Lucas Harris," she replied. "I have studied you. I know what you are capable of. You have fought in battles, survived when others didn't. You have a fire in you that few others possess. That is why I choose you." Lucas took a step back, trying to process everything. Her words felt heavy, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that this was the moment that could change everything. He had always been a man of duty, but this was a chance to change the future. Zira watched him carefully, waiting for his decision. "I offer you a chance to reshape the galaxy, Lucas, to lead not just for your people, but for all of us." He swallowed hard. The stakes were high. If he said yes, everything he knew about loyalty, duty, and honor would change. But if he said no, would the war ever end? Could humanity survive it? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lucas spoke. "All right, I'll help you." Zira's lips curled into a smile. Wise choice. The next few days were a blur for Lucas. After agreeing to help the alien queen, he found himself constantly questioning his decision. The offer she had made to him felt like a dream. And yet, he couldn't deny the urgency in her voice. Everything he knew about his mission, his orders, and his loyalty to Earth was now being tested in ways he never imagined. Zira was not like any enemy he had ever faced. She was intelligent, cunning, and powerful in a way that left him both in awe and on edge. She had shown him just a glimpse of her abilities, her ability to manipulate the environment around her, to control the elements with only a flick of her hand. It was something beyond anything Lucas had ever witnessed. The two of them traveled to a hidden underground base, deep within the planet's surface, where Zira's followers were waiting. These were the last remnants of her people, survivors of the war, hiding in the shadows for fear of their enemies. She had brought Lucas here not just to recruit him, but to show him the stakes of what was to come. As they entered the base, Lucas was greeted by dozens of alien soldiers. They were smaller than Zira, but just as fierce. Their eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, and their armor shimmered with a strange metallic sheen. Lucas couldn't help but feel out of place, like a stranger in a world he barely understood. "You'll be staying here while we prepare," Zira said, her voice low but filled with authority. "This is where we plan our future." Lucas nodded, still trying to wrap his mind around what he had gotten himself into. He had always been a soldier, trained to follow orders without question. But this was different. Zira wasn't just asking him to follow her lead. She was offering him a partnership, a chance to change the war in ways he couldn't even comprehend. Later that night, Zira found him sitting alone, staring at the stars through a narrow opening in the base. The quiet was unsettling, and Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something big. "You're wondering what this will cost you," Zira said, appearing beside him without a sound. Her voice was soft but piercing, cutting through the silence like a knife. "You wonder if you've made the right choice." Lucas didn't answer right away. He had been thinking about that a lot lately. I don't know, he admitted. I've never been asked to choose between what's right for my people and this, helping you. Zira smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. It was the kind of smile that told him she knew more than he did. I don't expect you to understand yet, but you will. You will soon see that this is the only way to end the war, the only way to bring peace. Lucas stared at the stars, feeling the weight of his decision. He had always believed in fighting for his people, for Earth, but now, standing in front of Zira, with her power and her knowledge, he wasn't so sure. Why should I trust you? He asked, his voice steady, though doubt still lingered in his mind. How do I know you won't betray me when it's all over? Zira's eyes glinted in the dim light. Because I'm offering you something no one else ever will. True power. A chance to reshape the future. And if you take that chance, I will never betray you. The promise in her voice was both reassuring and unsettling. Lucas didn't know if he could trust her, but he knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same again. Lucas hadn't fully understood what he was getting into when he had agreed to help Zira. Every day felt like stepping deeper into a world where the rules were different, where his choices no longer seemed to matter as much as her plans. Still, he stayed by her side, watching, listening, and learning. Zira had promised him power, but she had also promised something else: truth. As the days passed, she slowly began revealing the story of her people, the Gyrans, and the galaxy's bloody history. One evening, after another long day of preparation, Zira led Lucas into a hidden chamber deep inside the underground base. The room was filled with old scrolls, strange glowing artifacts, and holographic images of galaxies far beyond their reach. Lucas followed her in, feeling the weight of the history that surrounded them. This is where my people's story begins, Zira said, her voice quiet as she moved toward an ancient stone tablet. She pressed a button, and the room was filled with the hum of old technology. A hologram appeared in front of them, showing the once great empire of the Gyrans. Massive cities, ships as big as mountains, and people who had once ruled vast portions of the galaxy. We were once the rulers of this galaxy, she continued. My people built great civilizations, traveled to the stars, and controlled entire sectors of space. But greed and betrayal tore us apart. Enemies who pretended to be allies turned on us, destroying everything we built. Lucas watched the images, feeling a strange connection to the lost empire. He had never thought much about alien histories before, but now, standing before the ruins of the Ghyran people, he could see the parallels to the struggles his own planet faced. Zira continued, her gaze darkening. The war you know, the one between your people and mine, it didn't start because of us. It was started by your governments. The Gyrans were blamed for something we didn't do. And when we fought back, they pushed us further into the shadows. The galaxy has forgotten us. Lucas felt the weight of her words. He had always been taught that the war between humans and aliens was the result of aggression on the part of the alien races. It had never occurred to him that there might be more to the story, that maybe his side wasn't completely innocent. How do I know you're telling me the truth? He asked, still skeptical. How do I know you're not using me for your own gain? Zira turned to him, her eyes piercing into his. Because I've shown you everything, Lucas. I shared my history, my struggles, and my pain. I've offered you the chance to change the future, to make sure this war doesn't continue for generations. She paused, her expression softening for a moment. If you want to end the bloodshed, you must understand the truth. You must see beyond the lies your people have been told. The war is not just between us. It's between those who control the galaxy and those who suffer under their rule. I want to end that suffering, but I cannot do it alone. Lucas stood in silence, processing everything Zira had said. He had come to this planet thinking he was simply following orders, thinking the enemy was clearly defined. But now, with Zira's words ringing in his ears, he began to question everything he had ever known. She was right about one thing. The galaxy was a much darker place than he had ever imagined. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind for Lucas. Zira's words echoed in his mind constantly, challenging everything he had ever believed. Her offer wasn't just a chance for power. It was a chance to change the course of the galaxy. But the more he learned, the more he realized how much he didn't know. Zira had shown him the truth, revealing the long history of her people, their fall from grace, and the lies that had been spread about them. The more he thought about it, the more Lucas began to see the bigger picture. This war, this endless fighting, was it all a result of misunderstandings, manipulation, and betrayal? One evening, as the sun set behind the distant hills of the planet, Lucas found himself alone in the small room he had been staying in. The walls were lined with maps of star systems, strange symbols, and images of alien technology that he couldn't yet fully understand. He sat by the small window, staring out at the stars, lost in thought. A quiet knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. He turned to see Zira standing in the doorway, her presence as commanding as ever. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, her silver hair catching the soft glow of the room. "It's time," she said, her voice calm and steady. "Time for you to make your choice." Lucas stood up, feeling the weight of the decision ahead. The choice to fight alongside her, to embrace the power she had promised, was not an easy one. He had always believed that loyalty to his people, to Earth, was the only path. But now, that path was no longer clear. Was he still loyal to Earth, or was he becoming something else, something new? Zira stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "I can give you everything you need, Lucas. Power, knowledge, the chance to lead, to end this war and reshape the galaxy. All I ask in return is your help. Together, we can make this universe a better place. But you must decide now." Lucas swallowed hard. His mind was racing. What did it all mean? Was he truly ready to step into this new role, to fight for someone who had once been his enemy? Was he ready to accept the Queen's offer and risk everything? He thought back to the battles he had fought in, the countless lives lost on both sides, the never-ending conflict. He thought of his fellow soldiers, his friends, and the people back on Earth. What was he really fighting for? Was there another way? Could he truly make a difference by standing with Zira? "I'll help you," Lucas said finally, his voice quiet but firm. "I accept." Zira's lips curved into a smile, one that held both satisfaction and something darker, something more calculating. "Wise choice, Lucas Harris. You will not regret this. Together, we will change everything." Lucas felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, fear, and something else, something he couldn't quite place. He had made his decision, and now there was no turning back. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would never be the same. Zira turned and motioned for him to follow. "The next step is simple. You will meet with my generals and begin planning. We'll need to move quickly. The war is far from over, but with your help, we can end it." As Lucas walked beside her, he couldn't help but wonder if he had made the right choice. But as Zira led him deeper into the heart of her rebellion, he knew one thing for certain: his life would never be the same again. Lucas had always thought of himself as a soldier, trained to fight, to lead, and to survive. But now, standing in the heart of Zira's underground base, he was about to face a different kind of challenge. The power she had promised him was within reach, and it was time to find out what it truly meant. The chamber they entered was unlike anything Lucas had ever seen. The walls were covered in strange symbols and ancient markings, glowing faintly in the dim light. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested an object that seemed both old and powerful. It was a crystal, pulsating with energy, and it looked like it could bend the very fabric of reality. "This," Zira said, her voice low and almost reverent, "is the heart of Jiran. It holds the power of my people, our knowledge, our strength, and the essence of who we are. If you wish to help me rebuild our empire, you must accept this power." Lucas stood frozen, staring at the crystal. It was beautiful, but it also looked dangerous. He had no idea what it would do to him or what kind of changes it would bring. But he had already made his choice. There was no going back now. Zira stepped forward and placed a hand on the crystal. It pulsed in response, glowing brighter, and she turned to Lucas. "Do you understand what you're about to do? This will change you. You will no longer be the man you were." Lucas nodded. "I know," he said, his voice steady. He had already accepted that there was no turning back. Whatever this power was, he was ready to face it. Zira smiled, her eyes gleaming with a strange excitement. "Then, step forward." Without hesitating, Lucas approached the pedestal and reached out. As soon as his fingers touched the crystal, a surge of energy shot through his body, unlike anything he had ever felt. It was like electricity and fire coursing through his veins at the same time. His muscles tensed, and his head swam as his vision blurred. He tried to pull back, but it was too late. The energy had taken hold of him. For what felt like an eternity, Lucas was trapped in a whirlwind of lights and images. He saw glimpses of alien worlds, vast cities filled with towering structures, starships crossing the heavens, and battles that raged across the stars. He saw the history of the Gyrans, their rise to power, their fall, and the destruction of their people. He felt their pain, their loss, and their determination to rise again. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. Lucas collapsed to his knees, breathing heavily, his heart pounding in his chest. His body felt different, stronger, more alive than ever before. He could feel the power coursing through him, like a living force that was now a part of him. He could feel the knowledge of the Giran people in his mind, their strategies, their secrets, and their history. It was all there, at his fingertips. Zira stood over him, watching closely. "It's done," she said. "You are no longer just a soldier. You are one of us now." Lucas looked up at her, his mind still reeling from the experience. He didn't know what to think or how to process it. He had changed, and the galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place. But one thing was clear. He was ready. Ready to lead. Ready to fight. Ready to shape the future. The transformation was both exhilarating and terrifying. Lucas felt as though he had been reborn. The energy from the heart of Giran had infused every cell in his body, and now he could feel it. Power, strength, and knowledge, coursing through him like a river. His senses were sharper, his mind clearer. Everything around him seemed more vivid, more intense. But with the power came uncertainty. He was no longer the man who had stepped into Zira's underground base. The soldier who had sworn loyalty to Earth, to his comrades, was gone. In his place stood someone different, someone with the potential to lead the Gyrans back to power. As the days passed, Lucas trained with Zira's forces. His strength was unmatched, his speed incredible. His reflexes honed beyond anything he had ever experienced. The other soldiers looked at him with a mixture of awe and fear. They had seen his transformation, and now they were watching him carefully, waiting to see how he would use his new abilities. Lucas had become a symbol of hope for the Gyrans, a living testament to their future. But deep inside, Lucas struggled. He wasn't sure if he was doing this for them, or for himself. One evening, as he sat alone in his room, staring at the stars, a voice broke through his thoughts. "Lucas," Zira's voice called softly. She stepped into the room, her presence as commanding as ever. "I've been watching you." Lucas turned toward her, his eyes still clouded with doubt. "Watching me?" he asked, his voice tinged with frustration. "What are you seeing? Someone who's becoming like you. Someone who's forgetting everything they knew." Zira moved closer, her eyes locking with his. "You are not forgetting. You are becoming something more. You are becoming the leader I need, the leader the Gyrans need. You have the power to end the war, to lead us to victory." "But at what cost?" Lucas asked, his voice quieter now. "What am I losing in all of this? I've already given up so much." Zira reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder. You are not losing anything, Lucas. You are gaining everything. Power, influence, respect. The galaxy will bow to us. You will be remembered as the one who ended the war, the one who brought peace." Lucas looked away, the weight of her words settling heavily in his chest. Was this what he wanted? Was this really the price of peace? "I never wanted power," he said softly. "I wanted to protect my people. I wanted to keep them safe from the endless fighting. But now it feels like I'm becoming a part of the fight I wanted to escape." Zira's expression softened, but there was no hint of regret in her eyes. "You cannot escape the fight, Lucas. It's part of who we are, but you can control it. You can shape it. Together, we will reshape this galaxy. Together, we will end the war." Lucas took a deep breath, his mind racing. He had come so far, and yet he wasn't sure if he could keep going down this path. But the power, the knowledge, it was all so tempting. He felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. There was no turning back now. He turned back to face Zira, his eyes resolute. "Then let's finish this." Zira's smile returned, and it was the smile of someone who knew victory was within their grasp. "Yes, Lucas. Together, we will change everything." The plan was set in motion. Lucas could feel the excitement in the air as Zira and her forces prepared to strike. The once hidden Gyran fleet, now reinforced with his newfound strength, was ready to take on the galaxy. The people who had once been oppressed, who had been forced into hiding, were rising again. And Lucas, he was their leader. But as the final preparations were being made, something inside Lucas began to stir. A gnawing feeling, a sense of unease that he couldn't shake. For the first time since he had made his decision, he began to wonder if the cost of victory was too high. Lucas had seen what Zira was capable of. She was ruthless, calculating, and determined to regain everything her people had lost. She had promised him peace, but he had seen the fire in her eyes, the way she reveled in power. It was clear now. Zira wasn't just after peace. She wanted to rebuild the Gyran Empire, and she would do anything to make that happen, even if it meant destroying everything else in her path. "Are you ready?" Zira's voice cut through his thoughts. She stood in the doorway of his quarters, her presence as commanding as ever. Lucas turned to her, forcing a smile. "I'm ready." But deep down, he wasn't so sure anymore. Zira stepped inside, her gaze never leaving his. "The fleet is prepared. The humans won't know what hit them. Once we strike, the war will end, and you will be the one to lead us into the future." Lucas nodded, but the excitement in his chest was gone. He felt cold, detached, like an outsider watching his own life unfold. He had never imagined that the price of victory would feel so heavy. "I just don't understand, Zira," Lucas said quietly, his voice almost lost in the vastness of the room. "You say we're fighting for peace, but I'm starting to see that what you really want is to rebuild your empire. You want to rule again, to make everyone bow to you." Zira's eyes narrowed, but she didn't look surprised. "And what's wrong with that? I have the power to do it. My people deserve to be more than just survivors. We deserve to be rulers. The galaxy will see us for what we truly are." Lucas looked away, trying to push down the growing conflict inside him. But at what cost? How many lives are we willing to sacrifice for your empire? Zira stepped closer, her voice lowering to a whisper. "The cost is nothing compared to what we will gain. You understand, don't you? We can reshape the galaxy, Lucas. You can reshape the future. This is your chance to be more than just a soldier." Lucas felt a wave of anger and fear wash over him. He had come so far, but was this really the path he wanted to follow? The power she had given him was intoxicating, but it was also blinding him to the bigger picture. Was he really willing to sacrifice everything, his morals, his values, his humanity, for the promise of an empire? "I don't know if I can do this," Lucas admitted, his voice shaking. "I don't know if I can follow you down this path." Zira's face softened, but only for a moment. "Then you're weak, Lucas," she said, her voice cold. "You've lost your way." The words hit him harder than he expected, but he didn't back down. "Maybe I have, but I'm not going to destroy everything for the sake of power." Zira's smile faded, and in that moment, Lucas knew something had shifted. He had made his choice, and it would change everything. The days following his confrontation with Zira were tense, filled with uncertainty. Lucas could no longer ignore the gnawing feeling in his chest. The more he witnessed the Zyran Queen's ruthlessness, the more he realized that the path she was leading them down was not the one he could follow. He had accepted her offer of power, but now he could see the true cost of that power: lives, countless lives, and the very soul of the galaxy. As the fleet prepared for their final strike against the human forces, Lucas knew he had to make a choice. He had already betrayed his people by aligning with Zira, but he hadn't gone too far yet. There was still time. Still a chance to turn things around before the galaxy was plunged into darkness under Zira's reign. Late one night, Lucas stood in front of a window in his quarters, staring out at the fleet that had come to represent his new life. The ships, sleek and deadly, were ready to launch. The Zyrans were waiting for his command. It was now or never. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see one of his old comrades, Lieutenant Sarah Blake, standing in the doorway. Her eyes were filled with worry, but there was also a sense of relief. She had always been a steady presence, someone Lucas could trust, someone who had fought beside him through the toughest battles. "Lucas," Sarah said, her voice low. "I knew you were here. I knew you'd come back to us." Lucas felt a wave of guilt wash over him. Sarah had no idea what he had been involved in, no idea that he had turned his back on Earth for the promise of power. But now, seeing her standing there, he realized how much he missed the simple, straightforward missions of the past, how much he missed being on the right side of things. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I've made a terrible mistake." Sarah stepped into the room, her eyes narrowing as she studied him. "What do you mean?" "I've been working with Zira," Lucas confessed. "She's not the ally I thought she was. She's using me, using us. She wants to rule the galaxy, and she'll destroy everything to get it. I can't be part of that." Sarah's face softened, but her eyes were filled with determination. "We need to stop her, Lucas. You're not alone in this. We've been trying to find a way to reach you, to get you back to the human fleet. If we don't act now, everything you fought for will be lost." Lucas nodded, a sense of resolve settling over him. It was time to make things right. The path ahead would be dangerous, and Zira would never forgive him. But he couldn't continue down the road of destruction. He had to do whatever it took to stop her, to protect the galaxy from the chaos she would bring. "I'm with you," Lucas said, his voice steady. "Let's end this." With that, the decision was made. Lucas had betrayed his people once before, but now he had a chance at redemption. He knew it wouldn't be easy, and he couldn't do it alone, but with Sarah by his side and the strength of his past guiding him, he was ready to face Zira and stop her before it was too late.